Hi, everyone. For our opportunity execution plan, we have my team here, Wally, Jeremy, and myself. And if we move to the next slide, we'll be able to share a little bit more of our business plan. So as you can see, we have EntBet. And you'll find our logo right next to it. This is our first model of our logo, as well as a snapshot of what our app could potentially look like. And we'll go more into details as we move forward. Now, for our executive summary, an unmet need. When coming up with this idea, we thought about the small percentage of women that make up the gambling industry. Notoriously, for a very long time, women were not fully a part of the gambling industry, and it was dominated by men for a very long time. And this has ultimately excluded very passionate groups from partaking in these fun activities, making this an unmet need with a lot of potential. Our target market right now is women between the ages of 20 to 40 years of age, living in New York State. As for our solution, we've come up with a betting platform on which friends and strangers focus initially on females and can bet against one another on predetermined and user-determined props tailored to the user's favorite types of media. So we're incorporating different forms of entertainment in order to kind of lure in this new demographic into the gambling industry. In our app, users will be able to build communities around their own interests, which will range, and we'll actually share a little bit more about that as time comes. And we also aim to fill social gaps in the gambling industry by inviting an entirely new demographic, heavily focused on a specific target. So everyone, not just men, but women alike, can equally enjoy the game for its social and monetary benefits. This is a research-driven opportunity, and based on research conducted by the PwC, it is shown that online gambling has become very popular amongst millennials and the younger generations. So this even further reinforces our idea and our drive to pursue this plan. Now, we're going to go into our business model canvas, and we'll show you a layout of how we've kind of laid this out in terms of what our idea is. So as you can see, for our business model plan, we've laid out our key partners, our key activities, our key resources, value proposition, channels, customer relationships, customer segments, cost structure, and revenue streams. And we'll be going through these sections independently as we move forward. And here's a roadmap. Well, there was a roadmap.
All right, so now let's go to the value proposition. So what are we offering to the market? So we're offering an easy to use mobile application. So our target demographic can use more, technology, right? Most people now have phones and they can download apps, and this is why it's very useful and it's easy. From a click of your phone, you can just get on and bet on what you're interested in. And in terms of sense of community, we're also building a section where our target demographic can communicate with one another and get to know one another and creates a bond with one another. And this would allow them to stay on our platform and use it and converse with others. And it goes into Maslow's hierarchy of need, the need for belonging, because humans are social creatures. And why is it also goes into reward, because why do people bet, right? Why do people gamble? They bet and gamble because they want to earn rewards, and this is what we're also offering. We also have a diverse array of entertainment betting, ranging from movies, TV shows, to podcasts, and even books. Another key feature we have is one-on-one betting feature, which is not very prevalent in the current market, because no one offers that, and this would allow the user to create their own bets and about their own interests. So as Jazz talked about a little bit about the customer segment, we're trying to target women between the ages of 20 to 40, living in New York. Also, it's open to any New Yorkers, millennials, adult, Gen Z, and in general, right? Anyone who loves movies, shows, podcasts can use our app. In terms of channels, how are we going to get to our target segment. We're going to use flyers around campuses because that's, college students are more liberals, so they might be more open to gambling, betting online. And we're going to be using Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, blog sites, podcasts, podium ads in the MTA to attract more of our customer segments to use our apps. And we'll also be creating content on YouTube and these various social media platforms to engage our target segment and to promote awareness of our app.
Moving forward, we have key activities. And for the key activities, we need to go over the legality behind gambling. So understanding, what steps we actually have to take in order to legally start a betting platform and just joining the gambling industry overall, as well as establishing ourselves in the gambling industry and partnering up with streaming services that will allow us to incorporate that entertainment into our betting platform. Finally, we have risk management. So as you know, when a lot of this is involved, we do need to run background checks. So to make sure that there's no foul play or any leaked information, it's very important that we run background checks and auditing on people who are winning these bets to make sure that there was nothing done behind the scenes. And second, also bet authorization. So making sure that before anyone can actually enter a bet, they're authorized to do so. Next slide. Perfect. As for key resources, so the labor, the computing power, the venture capital that goes into it, we've thought about, well, one, having an app designer and developer, which is someone who would, create and maintain our app and make sure that everything's running smoothly in the case that we run into any problems. A hosting provider and domain, so someone who can host and provide a domain for our actual app, so we can establish ourselves, as well as a lawyer. So a lot of the time when money is involved, we need someone who can tell us, you can do this, you can do that, as well as just making sure we have the right contract set up for our business. We also would need a gaming license. So depending on what specific games we would want to incorporate into our betting app, we would need to get approved for those as well. Finally, we need a strong customer support system. So in the case that anyone runs into any problems, especially as we are, working with people's money, we want to make sure we can provide them with the best support possible.
All right, so who are our partners? Our key partners can change depending on the specific nature and climate of our business at any specific time, as well as the market in which we operate in. For this specifically New York, but with expansion and time, things can change and we need to be able to adapt. Nevertheless, our key partners for our business may include technology and software providers. Will require specialized technology and software in order to function properly. These partners include companies that provide online gambling platforms, payment processing systems, and other types of specialized software. Advertising and marketing partners will need to invest in advertising and marketing in order to attract customers and generate revenue. Partners may include online advertising networks, media corporations, or other firms that can help the business promote itself. We'll also need to partner with financial institutions. We'll need to work with them to process payments for customers or handle other financial transactions. This could include banks, payment processors, or other partners that facilitate financial transactions or anything security-wise related as well. Just as Jazz said, we'll need licensing and regulatory bodies. These include government agencies, regulatory bodies, and other organizations that are responsible for overseeing the gambling industry. And lastly is affiliate marketing partners. Our business could also partner with other websites and businesses that promote their products and services in exchange for commission. And so it's a partnership, and this helps the business reach a wider audience and generate additional revenue. All right, next slide. All right, cool. All right, so fundamentally, the cost structure is heavily determined based on the size and scale of business and the current state of the online gambling market, as well as the individual demographical markets that we choose to operate. Given that, Common costs associated with operating our online gambling business will likely include licenses in order to operate the business, and they can be expensive. So the cost will depend on the New York specific regulations, technology and software, with examples such as online gaming platforms, payment processing systems, and security measures to protect customer data, marketing and ad spend, which could include things like advertising, sponsorships, and other forms of promotion. We'll also need to hire employees to manage the various aspects of the business, such as customer service, finance, and technical support. The cost of these employees will depend on factors like their experience and the location of the business. Like most all other businesses, our business will also have overhead costs that must be covered, like rent, utilities, or other general expenses that come with running a business. Revenue stream. Our business can generate revenue through a variety of different verticals, and most of which are dependent on the types of games and products that we offer. Some of the examples include possible income from the sale of a virtual chip or a token that a player could use to place bets on various games, such as prop bets or head-to-head wagers. There's possible income from the sale of in-game items or virtual goods that enhance the player's experience to give them an advantage. There is revenue from advertising and companies that will pay to have their ads displayed on our gambling platform. There is revenue from subscription fees from players who want premium access or content or services. And lastly, there is commission or rake fees from players who participate in games or other specific competitions.
Now moving forward to our testing plan and how we're actually going to apply lean entrepreneurship to this to see if this is a viable solution. So if Wally can move to the next slide. If you recall, just maybe a few weeks back, we conducted a survey where we first tested by this idea of like, would people actually engage with our content by sending out a small survey to a group of people in order to test to see if the idea was marketable. Some of the things we found based on their responses was that 85% of our response interaction were females. So we were indeed just, reeling in this audience that we really wanted to partake into the gambling industry. Their ages ranged between the ages of 18 and 31. So essentially right on the ball. And as we move forward, we also found that 85% of our responses listened to podcasts. So this was definitely an eye-opener because this is something we considered to include as one of the forms of entertainment or media within our gambling platform. We did decide to focus specifically on a podcast in order to see if we were bringing in the right kind of content. And the podcast we picked was the Call Her Daddy podcast that is on Spotify. And after running the survey, we actually found that 92.3% knew what the Call Her Daddy podcast was. Some of them even shared that they listened to the podcast regularly. And we thought this was very important, especially because we thought that had we had the app ready a few weeks ago, one of the podcasts that we would have included was the Hailey Bieber interview episode on the Call Her Daddy podcast. And if we move to the next slide, for our future testing, based on what we found here and how we could do this differently in the future and kind of scale it a lot larger this time, we found that our next steps would be 1, testing other forms of media. So maybe not just specifically podcasts, but testing TV shows, movies, and potentially podcasts specifically in true crime, since we did find that a lot of women were interested in those. We would test this on a greater scale. So instead of, targeting the small group, we plan to market our app to on a larger scale by conducting in-person focus group, as well as making our surveys available across New York via QR codes, which would later be advertised. And if we move to the next slide.
All righty. So for our competitive analysis, we'll look at our competitors and the reason for our competitive advantage in the market. So our key competitors are the 9 companies listed on this slide. And since the legalization in January 2022, all the large gambling companies have entered the New York market. And thankfully, though, none of them offer anything similar to what we plan to offer. And that's why we see reason for a competitive advantage in the market. Our business has an opportunity to gain this advantage because we identified our unique service and product that we can offer to consumers. We plan to leverage this advantage to differentiate ourselves from competitors, which will involve heavily investing in marketing and advertising, as well as leaning on our specific business models to promote and emphasize our value proposition to potential customers. An essential goal that we have is to create a loyal customer base that consistently grows due to our innovation. Our overall ideology and all of our actions is towards staying ahead of the curve, thus maintaining the competitive advantage in the market that we desire. All right. Next.
Now, for the team analysis, we're going to go over our strengths, weaknesses, and what we need to make this business venture successful. First, we're going to go over the strengths. So we separated each founders with what they're good at and what they bring to the table. For Jazz, she's an eloquent public speaker, and she understands the process of starting, maintaining, and managing a business. She has some coding experience. In terms of me, Walid, I understand marketing and advertising on various media forms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And I am great at time management, and I'm an adaptive learner. In terms of Jeremy, he is a
Mute yourself. You're muted.
I think you muted yourself,
You muted yourself, Wally.
And as for Jeremy, he is an innovative, deep thinker, problem solver, and has some coding experience. And he sees the clear vision of the company, of the future that beholds us. And through this, we'll be able to understand what should be our next steps. In terms of our weaknesses, we lack the experience of business creation, and it all ties to us being college students and young. All of this, like lack of network, lack of business legal knowledge, lack of financial resources, all of that can be tied to us being college students and not having enough experience. But over time, we expect to overcome these weaknesses. Some of the needed experience and skills that we really require is definitely someone with software development, software developing knowledge, as well as funding, right? Funding is essential for our business because with funding, we can solve a lot of these issues, get someone with software developing background, as well as hire more personnel that could be really useful to our business and create, a real prototype of our app and launch it in a beta testing stage. To attract the right type of co-founder at this stage, of course, we don't have that much money. So let's look at who we are going to ideally want on our team, as well as how we're going to attract the right person. So ideally, we want someone who's a problem solver, who seeks challenges, who is passionate about our venture idea, because that passion can basically help us grow as a business, as well as, of course, someone who has a software development background, as well as someone who's compatible with our team, who agrees with our business decision, because at the end of the day, we want to hold control of our business. And so when we are ready to actually launch our app and investors come in, they don't have the decision-making power, or they don't have too much of it, that we lose our own company. To attract the right person, we are going to split the equity equally among the four of us, Jazz, Jeremy, and myself, as well as the fourth person that we're trying to find. By splitting the equity evenly among the four, we basically are setting ourselves to succeed in the future, because research has shown that companies that split equity equally amongst their founders tend to be more valuable over time, even though they have smaller pieces, and that's what we want. thank you for listening to our presentation.
Yes. Any
you.
questions?